The USS Ironclad flew through space faster than light, leaving Earth far behind. For weeks it traveled through the darkness between stars. Inside, Commander Elena Rourke and her crew worked hard, checking systems, running drills, preparing for what they might find when they arrived. They had never met aliens before. No one had. This was the first time humans were going to see another intelligent species up close. Some were excited. Others were nervous. But everyone knew this mission could change everything. Then, after weeks of travel, the ship dropped out of FTL speed near a strange star system. The Virex homeworld wasn't hard to find. It was surrounded by broken moons, shattered rocks, and a glowing red sun that seemed angry, like it was ready to swallow the planet whole. The crew stared at the view on the main screen. What they saw was not just a dying world, it was chaos. Virex Prime was shaking. Its surface cracked open, sending fire and smoke into the sky. Gravity waves pulled pieces of land into space. The planet was tearing itself apart. "Prepare for contact," Rourke said, standing tall on the bridge. Soon a message came in, not from the Virex leaders, but from a small scout ship that approached the Ironclad slowly. They didn't attack. They didn't run. They just sent a signal. It was a greeting. The Virex had seen them coming, and they were ready. Rourke gave orders. Send a reply. Peaceful intentions. We're here to help. A few hours later, the first face-to-face meeting happened inside the Ironclad's command chamber. A group of Virex stepped onto the ship. They were tall, with long limbs and glowing skin that shimmered in different colors. Their eyes were big, black, and full of emotion. They moved carefully, watching every human like they were studying them. One of them spoke through a translator device. "We thank you for coming. Our world is dying. We do not know if we can survive. But your arrival gives us hope." Rourke stepped forward. "We are here to help. We don't come as conquerors. We come as friends." The Virex leader bowed slightly, showing respect. From that moment on, the two species began working together. The Virex explained everything. Their planet was being destroyed because of something called a rogue singularity, a tiny piece of a black hole that had been floating through space for millions of years. Somehow it had entered their system and started pulling on Virex Prime. Scientists tried to stop it, but nothing worked. Now the only choice was to save as many lives as possible. Human engineers got to work. Using advanced tech from the Deathworlder fleet, they built giant orbiting stations where Virex families could live while scientists searched for a way to stabilize the planet. At first, everything went well. The Virex were grateful. They shared knowledge about their history, culture, and even some of their technology. In return, humans showed them how to build stronger shelters, grow food in space, and protect themselves from radiation. But then, something changed. A second alien signal appeared, this one not asking for help but giving a warning. "You are interfering in matters not yours. Leave now or face consequences." The humans froze. Who was this? Scans showed a new fleet enter it. All began with a sound that no one expected. A signal came from far away, so far that even light would take 60 years to reach it. It wasn't just noise or static like you hear on a broken radio. This time, it was different. There was something inside the signal, something that sounded like a voice. The year was 2097. Earth had changed a lot by then. People didn't just live on one planet anymore. We had built homes on Mars, bases on moons, and floating cities in space. Traveling between planets was still hard, but not impossible. Big ships moved people and goods across the solar system every day. We also had powerful space forces. The most famous one was called the Terran Defense Armada, or TDA for short. They were like space soldiers, but they did more than fight. They protected colonies, explored new worlds, and sometimes helped people who were in trouble. But this time, the call for help didn't come from humans. It came from someone else, someone out there in the stars. At first, no one believed it was real. Scientists thought maybe it was a broken machine or some weird space event making strange sounds. But as the days passed, the same message kept coming again and again. And it wasn't random. It had patterns, like language. Someone was trying to talk to us. Then one night, a young scientist named Dr. Mira Tanaka made a big discovery. She was working late at a research station on the moon when she finally decoded part of the message. What she saw made her jump out of her seat and run outside screaming into the comms tower. They're alive, they're real. What she saw was this: we are the Virex. Our world is dying. We ask for help. We do not wish to die. That was the translation. Simple, direct, sad. Soon the whole world knew. Governments held emergency meetings. News channels played the message over and over. People debated online. Should we help them? Can we help them? Are they dangerous? But one thing was clear. For the first time in history, humans had received a cry for help from another intelligent species. Scientists worked hard to learn more about these aliens. From what little data they had, they guessed the Virex were a bioluminescent insectoid race. That means they probably glowed in the dark and looked a bit like bugs, like giant intelligent ants or mantises with glowing skin. Their technology was strong, but not perfect. Their signal was sent through old-style radio waves, which meant they might not have discovered faster ways of communication like quantum pulses or gravity-based signals. More importantly, they were in trouble. Their homeworld, a planet called Virex Primes, was being pulled apart. Something was wrong with its orbit. The planet was getting closer and closer to its sun. In just a few months, it would either crash into the star or be torn apart by gravity. The Virex had tried everything. They had launched rockets, built shields, even tried to move parts of their population to nearby moons. But nothing worked. So they did the only thing left. They reached out to the stars, hoping anyone would hear them, and someone did. When the message hit the public, reactions were mixed. Some people were excited. Finally, proof we're not alone, they said. Others were scared. What if they come here, they worried. And then there were those who thought it was fake. It's a hoax, they claimed. No way aliens exist. Governments didn't wait for the internet to decide. The United Nations formed an emergency council called the United Stellar Council, USC. It included leaders from every major country on Earth, plus representatives from off-world colonies. Their job: decide what to do about the Virex. Some members argued for immediate action. If we can save lives, we must, said President Elena Cruz from the Americas Union. Others were more cautious. We don't know who these beings are, warned General Li Zhou of China's Aerospace Command. They might be tricking us. There were other problems too. Sending help across 60 light-years was not easy. Even with the best ships, it would take decades to reach them, at least. Unless we used faster-than-light engines, which were still experimental. Only a few prototype ships had FTL drives, and most of them were military. That's where the Deathworlder fleet came in. The Deathworlder-class carriers were unlike any ships ever built. They were made for survival in the harshest places imaginable: planets with acid storms, frozen wastelands, radiation zones, you name it. These ships were built after Earth faced a series of climate disasters. Rising sea levels, superviruses, and deadly heat waves forced humans to live in extreme conditions. From that struggle, a new kind of soldier was born, one who could survive anywhere. The Deathworlder fleet was their home. Each carrier was a floating city. It carried thousands of soldiers, scientists, engineers, and medics. It had farms, labs, hospitals, and weapons. It could fight, build, heal, and explore, all in one. Most importantly, it had FTL capability. Only 2 Deathworlder ships had full FTL drives, the USS Ironclad and the USS Hellstorm. These ships were fast enough to make the trip to the Virex system in just a few weeks instead of decades. So the USC made a decision: send one ship to investigate. Just one. Commander Elena Rourke was chosen to lead the mission. She was known across the fleet as tough, smart, and fearless. She had survived missions on Venus, Titan, and even a black hole probe gone wrong. If anyone could handle first contact with aliens, it was her. She got the order. Go to Virex Prime. Find out what's happening. Help if you can. Don't start a war. The USS Ironclad was prepared for launch. On a cloudy morning in Nibon, Nairobi, Africa, the official capital of the United Stellar Council, the USS Ironclad lifted off from the orbital dock. Thousands watched from Earth, from Mars, and from space stations across the solar system. Cameras followed the ship as it rose into the sky, engines blazing, cutting through the clouds like a sword. Inside, Commander Rourke stood on the bridge, looking at the stars ahead. Set course for Virex Prime, she said. Engaging FTL drive, replied the navigator. With a flash of blue light, the ship vanished. It had begun. Humanity was no longer alone. This was the beginning of something, bigger than anyone could imagine. A simple call for help from another world had set off a chain of events that would change the fate of galaxies. The Virex had reached out, not knowing if anyone would answer. And humanity answered, not with fear, but with courage, power, and the will to survive, because humans were not just explorers, they were warriors, they were survivors, they were Deathworlders. As the battle raged, the Virex watched in awe and horror. They had asked for help, but they hadn't expected this kind of power. The humans weren't just saving them, they were declaring war. And for the first time in history, humanity was not just defending Earth. They were protecting another species. They were fighting for peace, and they were doing it with fire, steel, and unbreakable will. The battle had just begun, but already the stars were burning with fire. The humans and the Xeric clashed in space above Virex Prime, their ships tearing through each other like wolves fighting over a kill. Explosions lit up the dark like lightning in a storm. Metal twisted, lasers screamed, missiles flew faster than sound. Inside the USS Ironclad, Commander Elena Rourke stood on the bridge, watching everything unfold. She didn't flinch when a blast rocked the ship. She didn't shout when alarms screamed, she just watched. Thinking, planning. This was what she was trained for. Not peace talks or handshakes. War. She had always believed that strength wasn't about size or numbers. It was about will. And humans had more of that than anyone else in the galaxy. Status report, she ordered. A young officer turned to her, voice shaking. We've lost 2 escort ships. The Hellstorm is holding position near the asteroid belt. Rourke nodded. Tell them to move in. We're not letting these monsters take this system. Outside, the battle raged. The Xerac Dominion was not used to being challenged. For centuries, they had ruled through fear. They crushed weaker species, burned planets, and left nothing behind but silence. But now they faced something new. They faced humans, and humans did not back down. The Ironclad fired again. A massive plasma cannon roared to life, sending a glowing beam of pure energy into the heart of a Xerac warship. It exploded in a ball of fire, lighting up the battlefield. Cheers broke out on the bridge, but it was only the beginning. Back on Virex Prime, the planet continued to shake. Cracks spread across its surface like broken glass. Fires roared where oceans once flowed. People, both Virex and human engineers, worked non-stop to save as many lives as possible. The Deathworlder teams had set up huge evacuation platforms, floating stations that could carry thousands off the dying world. Robots dug tunnels underground trying to find safe zones. Scientists worked on stabilizing gravity fields, hoping to buy more time. But time was running out. Every minute brought Virex Prime closer to destruction, and every minute brought more Xerac ships into the system. They keep coming, said Lieutenant Tanaka, staring at the radar. More fighters. More warships. Commander Rourke looked at the screen. She saw the enemy forces growing stronger. She knew if they kept fighting like this, they'd lose. So she made a decision. We changed the rules. Everyone turned to her. What? Do you mean? Asked the tactical officer. She smiled coldly. We stopped playing by their rules. We fight like we always have, like Earth taught us. That meant no mercy, no second chances, only survival. Back on Earth, people watched the battle unfold in real time. News stations broadcast live feeds from space. Millions gathered in cities, towns, and colonies to see what was happening. Some cheered for the humans. Others prayed for peace. But most just watched in silence, wondering what would happen next. Governments argued. Some leaders wanted to pull back. They feared a full-scale galactic war. Others demanded support. They saw this as a chance to show humanity's power. On Mars, protests broke out. On Luna, scientists debated ethics. In orbit, military leaders prepared for the worst. Then came the first major strike. The Zirac launched a surprise attack on one of the human evacuation stations. A giant warship dropped out of hyperspace and fired a weapon so powerful it turned the station into dust in seconds. Thousands died. Silence fell across Earth. Then rage. Then action. President Cruz addressed the world. This is not just a war for the Virex. This is a war for all of us. We do not run. We do not hide. We fight. Orders were sent. More ships were dispatched. Earth was at war. In space, the humans changed tactics. They stopped trying to hold the line. They started taking the fight to the enemy. Using stealth drones and fast fighter squadrons, they attacked Zirac. Supply lines. They destroyed fuel stations, crippled communication hubs, and ambushed enemy fleets near dead moons. They became ghosts in the dark. One night, a small group of human pilots flew behind enemy lines. They found a Zirac command base, hidden inside an asteroid. Without hesitation, they dropped bombs and vanished before the explosion could reach them. The Zirac lost control of half their fleet. Another victory. But the humans weren't done. Meanwhile, the Virex began to feel something strange. At first, they were grateful for the help, then amazed at the human strength. But now, they were starting to feel afraid. The humans fought differently than any species they had ever seen. They didn't just defend, they punished. They didn't just win battles, they erased enemies. The Virex had asked for help. Now they wondered, had they invited something unstoppable? A group of Virex leaders met with Commander Rourke aboard the Ironclad. One of them, a tall being with glowing eyes, spoke carefully. "You fight with great power. We are thankful. But how far will you go?" Rourke looked at him. "As far as I have to." He hesitated. "But at what cost?" She didn't answer. Because she already knew. There was no turning back now. As the battle raged, the humans made a shocking discovery. Deep inside a captured Zirac ship, they found records, logs, messages, plans, and one truth that changed everything. The Zirac hadn't just targeted the Virex. They had plans for dozens of other worlds, including Earth. They had been watching humanity for years, waiting, testing. Now, they had a reason to act. Earth was next. When Rourke read the files, she felt a chill. This wasn't just about saving the Virex anymore. This was about protecting home, protecting everything. She turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for full war status. Then she added something that would echo across history. We don't fight fair. We fight final. The humans were no longer just helping. They were declaring war, and they were ready to win, no matter the cost. The war turned brutal. What had started as a mission to save a dying alien race had become something much bigger. The humans weren't just fighting for the Virex anymore. They were fighting for survival, yours, mine, and every living soul across Earth and its colonies. Commander Elena Rourke stood on the bridge of the USS Ironclad, watching the stars burn with fire. Ships clashed in space like angry gods, tearing each other apart in flashes of light and death. Every second brought new losses. Every minute changed the battlefield. But she didn't flinch. She had made her choice. She would not stop until the enemy was broken. And so the Deathworlders did what they did best. They fought dirty. They fought hard. They fought final. It began with a strike that shocked even the most hardened soldiers. Using stolen Zirac tech and data from captured ships, human scientists built something terrifying, a weapon that could turn planets into death zones. Not bombs, not lasers, Something worse. Environmental warfare. They triggered massive volcanic eruptions on Xerac-controlled worlds, flooded entire cities with artificial tsunamis, used gravity weapons to rip tectonic plates apart. One planet cracked open like an egg, swallowing millions of Xerac in fire and magma. The message was clear. You don't hurt our people and walk away. You don't threaten Earth and live. Back on Virex Prime, the last survivors were being pulled out. Evacuation teams worked non-stop, lifting thousands off the surface before the planet collapsed completely. Robots dug through ruins. Medics treated the wounded. Scientists tried one last experiment to stabilize the core. But it failed. Virex. Prime was gone, but the Virex lived, because of the humans. Still, some of them couldn't help but feel fear. The humans had saved them, yes, but at what cost? They watched in silence as the Ironclad launched another wave of missiles into deep space, watched as Commander Rourke gave orders that sounded more like executions than strategy. "Drop the virus," she said coldly. A scientist hesitated. "Are you sure? It could wipe out entire populations." She didn't blink. "If it stops them from attacking Earth, do it." The Virex leader stepped forward. "You are not like us," he said quietly. "You do not seek peace first, you seek power." Rourke looked at him. "We've seen peace fail. We've seen diplomacy ignored. We learned long ago, if someone wants to kill you, you don't ask why. You make sure they never get the chance again." The Virex didn't answer. He simply walked away. Back home, Earth was changing. At first, people cheered for the humans in space. They saw them as heroes, protecting the innocent and standing up to tyranny. But as reports came in about the methods used, the environmental attacks, the viral strikes, the total destruction of entire Xerac colonies, some people started to question if this was still defense. Or conquest, news anchors argued late into the night. Are we saving lives or becoming monsters? Protests broke out on Mars. A group of scientists refused to build more weapons. On Luna, a council of ethics demanded answers. Even inside the United Stellar Council, debates turned into shouting matches. General Li Zhou called for an immediate ceasefire. "This is no longer about protecting ourselves," he said. "This is about revenge." President Cruz disagreed. "We cannot afford to be soft. If we let them regroup, they will come for us next. And they won't ask for peace." The world was divided. But in space, the battle raged on. Then came the turning point. The humans found the Xerac homeworld, not just any planet, the center of their empire. A fortress world surrounded by deadly defenses, shielded by ancient technology, hidden behind layers of traps and lies. No one had ever reached it, until now. The Ironclad led the charge. Behind it followed dozens of other human ships, battle carriers, stealth frigates, drone fleets, and orbital destroyers. They moved like a storm across the stars, and when they arrived, they didn't ask questions. They attacked. Lasers burned through shields. Missiles tore through towers. Fighters dove into canyons, dropping bombs that shook the ground like earthquakes. For 3 days, the battle raged, and then, suddenly, the Xerac stopped fighting. Their leaders sent a message: "We surrender." Silence fell across the battlefield. Human officers stared at their screens, unsure if they had heard correctly. After everything, the deaths, the destruction, the war that had spread across half the galaxy, the enemy was giving up. Commander Rourke stood alone on the bridge, staring at the message. Her crew waited for her order, to accept or to destroy. She didn't hesitate. "Tell them this. No terms, no mercy, only one condition." "What condition?" asked the translator. She smiled. "They kneel." The message was sent. The Xerac did not respond immediately, but within hours their leaders appeared on screen, broken, beaten, afraid. One of them spoke. "We surrender unconditionally." Rourke leaned back in her chair. "Well," she said, "that was easy. The war was over. But the consequences had only just begun." Across the galaxy, news of the Xerac defeat spread like wildfire. Some species celebrated. Others feared what would come next. The humans had won. But they had won with overwhelming force, with no mercy and no hesitation. They had shown the universe what they were capable of, and now everyone knew. Earth was no longer just a planet, it was a power, a force, a threat, and there was no turning back. The war was over. The Xerak had surrendered. Their empire shattered. Their fleets destroyed. Their leaders broken and begging for mercy. For the first time in centuries, they were no longer rulers of fear. They were survivors of it. And the humans? They had won. But winning came with questions. Commander Elena Rourke stood on the bridge of the USS Ironclad, looking at the stars beyond. The battlefields were quiet now. No more fire. No more death raining from the sky. Just silence. She should have felt peace. Instead, she felt weight. Behind her, officers moved quietly. Some celebrated. Others stared at reports coming in from Earth, from Mars, from Luna. Not all the messages were happy. Not all of humanity cheered their victory. Some called them monsters. Others called them heroes. Most just didn't know what to think. Because this wasn't just a war anymore, it was a warning to everyone watching. Earth had arrived in the galaxy, not with open hands, but with iron fists. Back home, the world changed overnight. Cities that once feared alien invasion now feared something else, their own people. News stations replayed footage from the final battles, planets burning, cities collapsing, enemy ships being torn apart like paper. One video showed a human soldier standing over a Xerak prisoner saying only one thing: "You brought this on yourselves." That clip went viral. Protests grew louder. Scientists demanded control over military decisions. Politicians argued about the future of space exploration. Was this what humanity wanted? To be feared across the stars? On Mars, a group of colonists held a public vote. Should Earth expand its power? The results shocked everyone. More than half said no. Even among those who supported the war, many feared what came next. Humanity had tasted power. And power is hard to give back. On Virex Prime's orbit, the last pieces of the dying planet drifted through space like ghosts. What remained of the Virex population lived in massive floating cities built by the Deathworlders. They were safe for now, but they were also afraid. The humans had saved them, but they had also shown them a side of themselves no one expected. Strength wrapped in shadow, mercy buried under steel. A Virex leader named Kalen stood before his people and spoke softly. "We asked for help and we received it, but I wonder, did we truly understand what we were asking for?" No one answered, because deep down they knew the truth. Humans were not like them. They were not born in peace. They were born in war, and they survived because they refused to lose. Commander Rourke returned to Earth as both a hero and a villain, indeed. Some places she was welcomed like a queen. Crowds cheered her name. Children drew pictures of her standing tall against aliens. Schools taught lessons about her bravery. But in other places, people burned her image. They called her a butcher. They said she had gone too far, that she had turned defense into conquest, that she had made Earth look like the monster they had fought so hard not to become. President Cruz tried to calm the storm. "We did what we had to do," she said in a global broadcast. "If we had done less, we would all be dead." But not everyone believed that. Some said the Xerak could have been stopped without destroying entire worlds. Some said diplomacy could have worked if given time. And some whispered a darker fear. What if this was just the beginning? Years passed. Time. Healed wounds, but not memories. The Xerak were scattered, but not gone. Some fled to hidden corners of the galaxy. Some became slaves. Some vanished into the dark. The Virex rebuilt slowly. With help from Earth, they started new colonies, raised new generations, and tried to forget the day their planet died. But they never forgot the humans who saved them, or the price that was paid. Across the stars, new species watched closely. Some reached out to Earth, hoping for friendship. Others stayed silent, waiting to see what kind of power humanity would become. Would they be protectors or conquerors? Would they bring peace or destruction? Only time would tell. Commander Rourke. Retired after 10 years. She left the military and disappeared to a small moon colony near Saturn. She never gave interviews, never wrote books, never told her side of the story, but her name lived on. Children still whispered it. Soldiers still studied her tactics. Historians still debated whether she had saved the galaxy or doomed it. Her final words, recorded in a secret meeting with President Cruz, were simple. We showed them we wouldn't fall. That's all we ever needed to do. And maybe that was enough. Decades later, when Earth looked back at that moment, the cry from the stars, the rescue mission, the war that shook galaxies, people remembered one thing above all else. The Virex had reached out, and humanity had answered, not with weakness, not with hesitation, but with everything they had, with fire, with fury, with strength that could not be broken, because humans were not just explorers. They were warriors. They were survivors. They were Deathworlders. And now, the universe knew you don't mess with Earth.